You slept enough hours last night. You know this because you counted them, or your device counted them for you. And yet, somewhere around 9 or 10 at night, something strange happens. Your body is exhausted, genuinely, physically exhausted, and your mind will not stop. This is not a contradiction, even though it feels like one. Being exhausted and being unable to sleep are not opposites. They can, and very often do, occur in the same body, at the same hour, for the same reason. The reason has almost nothing to do with how tired you are. It has to do with a hormone most people believe they understand, and almost nobody actually does. Stay with me, because by the end of this video, you will understand exactly what is happening in your body in the hour before bed. And there is one specific 3-minute adjustment you can make tonight that addresses it directly. I am Antoine Moreau. I am not a sleep physician, and I want to say that plainly at the start, because the sleep space has no shortage of people claiming more authority than they have. I spent 15 years writing about wine before I became, out of personal necessity and then genuine obsession, a practitioner and educator in circadian biology. What I do is translate the work of the researchers who actually run the studies, people like Matthew Walker at Berkeley, Russell Foster at Oxford, into something specific enough to actually use. Nothing in this video is a substitute for medical care. It is, I hope, a clearer explanation of something your doctor may not have had the time to walk you through. A few years ago, I worked with a litigation partner in Paris. I will call her Isabelle. She worked 12-hour days with the focus of someone who has spent her career being the sharpest person in every room. She did not think she had a sleep problem. She did not really believe in sleep problems until her husband reached his limit. He told me in our first session that she woke at 3 every morning, stared at the ceiling. He could hear her thinking. We talked for an hour before Isabelle mentioned, almost as an aside, that her last work call of the day usually ended at 9:45 in the evening. Dinner. 40 minutes reviewing documents on her laptop. In bed by 11:30. She had been doing this for 6 years. Here is what I want you to notice. Isabelle was not short on sleep hours in any dramatic way. She was exhausted every single day, and her nervous system had no way of telling the difference between a courtroom at 2 in the afternoon and her own kitchen at 10 at night. The alertness from that final call was still circulating in her body when her head touched the pillow. She was not an insomniac in the way she assumed. She was an engine that had never once been given the chance to cool down. Most people, hearing Isabelle's story, assume the fix is obvious. Stop working so late, unplug earlier, meditate more. I want to tell you why none of that is actually the mechanism at work here, and why the real explanation is something almost nobody explains correctly, including, frankly, most doctors who are not sleep specialists. The explanation is a hormone called cortisol, and I want to correct right now the single most common misunderstanding about it. Cortisol has a terrible reputation. People talk about wanting to lower it the way they talk about wanting to lower cholesterol, as though it were simply a number to shrink. This is a real misunderstanding, and it leads people toward exactly the wrong solution. Cortisol is not primarily a stress hormone. It is a timing instrument, arguably the most important one in your entire body. In a well-regulated system, cortisol rises sharply about 30 to 45 minutes after you wake, giving you the physiological lift that makes a morning feel possible. From there, it is supposed to decline steadily across the day, reaching its lowest point in the late evening. That decline is what allows a second hormone, melatonin, to rise. When cortisol falls the way it should, melatonin rises the way it should, and your nervous system shifts from what's called sympathetic dominance, alert, ready, forward-facing, into parasympathetic dominance, which is the only state in which real sleep can begin. Here is the part that matters for Isabelle, and probably for you. In a chronically demanding professional life, that evening decline often does not fully happen. Not dramatically, not to a level anyone would call a medical emergency, just elevated enough. Enough that melatonin cannot rise cleanly, enough that your body remains in a low-grade state of readiness precisely when it is supposed to be releasing. Researchers tracking cortisol and sleep together across consecutive nights, using real electroencephalogram recordings alongside saliva samples, found something worth sitting with. Higher pre-sleep cortisol reliably predicted shorter, lower-quality sleep that same night. And people who slept poorly on average showed a measurably flatter cortisol curve across their entire day, regardless of how many hours they had spent in bed. The hours logged in bed told one story. The hormonal state of the body told a completely different one. Here is where it becomes genuinely counterintuitive, and this is the part that changed how I think about my own sleep entirely. The problem most of my clients have is not too much cortisol. It is cortisol at the wrong time. And that distinction changes everything about what you should actually do about it, which I'll walk you through shortly. But first, I want you to understand exactly why exhaustion and wakefulness can sit in the same body at the same moment, because once you see the mechanism, you cannot unsee it in your own evenings. Your autonomic nervous system runs on two settings. The sympathetic system is the accelerator, elevated heart rate, sharpened attention, blood redirected toward the muscles that let you act. It is, not coincidentally, the system that makes you good at your job. The parasympathetic system is the brake. Slowed heart rate, relaxed muscles, cortisol continuing its decline. It is the only system under which real, restorative sleep occurs. In a healthy day, these two systems hand off to one another in a clean rhythm. Sympathetic through the working hours. Parasympathetic by evening. This is not a wellness ideal. It is the basic design specification of a human body. For most professionals, that handoff has quietly broken down. One analysis of more than 4 million recorded nights of wearable data found that elevated sympathetic activity in the evening, regardless of its cause, reliably delayed sleep onset, shortened total sleep, and reduced sleep quality. 4 million nights is not a study of unusual individuals. It is a description of a biological law. There is a name for a specific pattern Isabel described: waking, exhausted, unable to switch off. Researchers call it the stressed drowsy state. Real measurable sleepiness in the evening, sitting alongside elevated sympathetic activation rather than the parasympathetic shift the body actually needs. It is the physiological fingerprint of being tired and wired at the exact same moment. If that phrase describes your evenings, you are not imagining a contradiction. You are describing a documented state. I want to be careful here because it would be easy to hear all of this and conclude the answer is simply manage your stress better. I don't think that phrase is actually useful to anyone. Telling a litigation partner working 12-hour days to manage her stress is a little like telling a sommelier to appreciate wine more. It names something true without giving anyone a mechanism to act on. What the research actually points toward is more specific and considerably more hopeful. This is a timing problem, not a character problem, and timing problems respond to timing interventions. You do not need to eliminate the demands of your work. You need to give your body a specific, reliable signal in the window before sleep that tells your nervous system it is safe to complete the handoff it was already designed to make. And this is the part most sleep advice gets wrong entirely, because almost everything marketed to you as a sleep solution is aimed at the output, not the cause. Melatonin supplements, magnesium, blue light glasses, white noise. I am not telling you these are worthless. Melatonin is a genuine hormone. Magnesium genuinely supports the nervous system. But every one of these tools is trying to influence sleep after the fact, while the actual cause, an evening cortisol level that has not been given permission to fall, remains completely untouched. It is a little like topping up the oil in an engine that is overheating. The oil is not wrong, it simply is not the problem. This is why so many intelligent, disciplined people end up with a drawer full of things they have tried, each one aimed at a symptom, while the underlying signal, cortisol, at the wrong hour, continues uninterrupted, night after night. So here is what I actually want you to do, starting tonight. I call this the power cycle, and it takes about 15 minutes in the window right before you intend to sleep. Step 1. The offload. 5 minutes. A physical notebook, not your phone. Write down, as a plain list, every open task and unresolved thought currently occupying your attention. Not a plan, a dump. This closes what psychologists call open loops, the specific unresolved task pattern that keeps the nervous system on alert far more than physical tension does. Step 2. The downshift. A warm shower or bath, 60 to 90 minutes before bed if your schedule allows it, followed by 3 to 5 minutes of slow breathing. In for 4 seconds through the nose, out for 6 through the mouth. The warmth accelerates the core temperature drop your body needs to initiate sleep. The breathing engages the vagus nerve directly, which is the fastest non-pharmacological lever you have on the sympathetic to parasympathetic handoff. Step 3. The anchor. In the final 2 to 3 minutes, one consistent sensory cue, a specific scent, a specific texture, applied only at this moment and no other time in your day. Over roughly 3 to 6 weeks, this trains your nervous system to recognize the cue itself as the beginning of sleep before you are even tired. Isabel did not change her working hours. She could not have. The caseload was what it was. What changed was the 90 minutes before bed. 3 months in, she sent me a message at 7 in the morning. 6.5 hours of sleep, and she had woken before her alarm feeling like a different person. The hours had not changed. The state of her nervous system crossing into sleep had. If you recognize this, exhausted by 9 and then wide awake the moment your head hits the pillow, tell me in the comments what time your last high-stimulus task of the day usually ends. I read these, and that single detail tells me almost everything about where your cortisol is likely sitting in the evening. You slept enough hours last night, and you were still exhausted this morning. That was never a hint that something is wrong with your discipline or your constitution or your sleep. It was a hint that your cortisol is arriving at the wrong hour, and that is not a problem more willpower solves. It is a problem timing solves. Tonight, before you get into bed, give your nervous system one specific signal instead of 10 vague ones. The full 15-minute protocol, along with the complete research behind it, is laid out in the Sleep Shift at 15minutesleepshift.com. Subscribe if this was useful, and I will see you in the next one.